Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignites. With me today, I'm really honored to have Stephen de Groot, and he's going to be talking about his book, Getting to Better, a new model for evaluating human potential at work and in life. Before I start talking about the book, Stephen, where can people find you?
People can find me at gettingtobetter.com. That's the easiest place. Information about the book. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So yeah, you can find me. Stephen de Groot. Getting to Better will take you where you need to be.
Before I ask you about the inspiration, I wanted to say I really enjoyed the book. And I just said to you before we came live, if there's any book that can actually help people get better, it's got to be something like this, because you go into detail, and I don't mean detail from a bad way, but detail from a good way. You have a system that clearly, I sit there and like, how does it? Oh yeah, if you did, yeah. So I just wanted to say that. So tell me, what was the inspiration behind the book?
Well, there's so many inspiration. I'm mostly all the people that shared their stories with me over the years. So I've been helping people since I was 6 years old. I went into helping. It became a business. I became an adjunct professor in social work and psychology, and I've been working on finding better ways to help. Because one of the things I found out is as I used different models, they didn't help as much as they promised they would help. And so I started building this thing, these sets of dimensions 30 years ago, validated them for 15 with some pretty big names in the front of the book who really know their stuff. And it was really that group, the core council, that said, you got to stop writing about this. You got to stop testing it. The world needs this. And so about 5 years ago, I started the journey to bring this very comprehensive model of human betterment, which is extremely comprehensive, but the book has made it simple, right? You do not need a degree in PhD or a PhD in psychology, sorry, to read this book and understand how to start making your life better. So the inspiration, foster kids, gang members first, and then I moved into like employees and then CEOs and F-35 pilots and some of the top performers in the world. And one of the things that inspired me the most is that as humans, the formula's the same.
Yeah.
We use different words, but yeah, that's been a big inspiration for me, is all those things.
You spent 30 years studying human behavior. Out of all the words that you could have chosen, why is the concept of getting to better more powerful than becoming great or reaching the top?
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us are disillusioned with be the best and perfect and all of this stuff. It's exhausting. And as a matter of fact, I don't even know what those are. And if we've set perfect or the best for ourselves, we've probably set the bar too low. But I think we all know what increments of better are, like a little bit better at work, a little bit better in my relationships with home. I mean, a little bit better in terms of getting a little bit done. And I think when we set ourselves up with specific small steps to get to better, we blow past what we thought perfect or best was. So I like better because it's doable. I like better because it's a perpetual destination, and it's always better than the last place we've been. So there's like it's got so much utility. But I think the thing is, it takes the pressure off. It takes the pressure off of having to set these idealistic pie in the sky that may not be reachable, which just starts to reverse itself and become disillusioning and overwhelming.
Yeah. You talk about the core algorithm as a way to simplify human potential. For someone who's hearing this for the first time, how does this formula actually solve the mystery of why we do what we do?
Well, I think the cool thing about this book is, it's one thing to say it's simple and then it's a core algorithm.
Yeah.
It's like sounds contradictory, but I think one of the things is the algorithm is just a series of dimensions that humans already know themselves. Like what I did with the book, and I hope you found it this way, that I'm speaking to you through the first 5 chapters. Like it's like I'm like saying, hey, you already know this.
I can hear your voice in this. Yes.
Yeah. You heard my voice before you heard my voice. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think so. One of the things I want to do is validate and affirm what people already know to be true as a starting point, because many of us, especially in like the self-help kind of development area, we're often taught like, there's something wrong with us. You don't really know this. And here's some life hacks. And it's like you're starting fresh when really we already know this stuff to be true. Like we wake up with all of these things inside of us. And so taking the mystery out is validating and affirming like, hey, guess what? There's nothing wrong with you.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, you're just a little bit cross-threaded, which I talk about in the book. You got to back it up a quarter turn and take all of your awesomeness and start thinking about it in a different way, in a fresh perspective. And that's, offered a fresh perspective on trust, a fresh perspective on motivation. Of course, why stop there? I thought I got to go for it. I got to look at resilience from a fresh perspective as well, if we're going to go the distance on this one.
So most leaders try to motivate their teams through external rewards or pressure. Why does research suggest that motivation isn't something we do to people, and what should we do instead?
Yeah, well, that's such a motivation is like in the top 3 things that all leaders, probably all humans, parents in particular, struggle with, right? And again, I say it in the book, we don't have it totally wrong, we have it just wrong enough. And I think when it comes to motivation, you hear things like, uh, you know, tighten up the screws, turn up the heat. You hear this idea of like, light a fire under them. Have you heard that? Like it's all the analogies for motivation are violent. That's probably why the approaches feel that way.
Mm.
And I think, it's about lighting the fire from within. And one of the things I talk about in the book is something called our core 4, our needs, our values, our goals and strengths, right? These internal forces that we wake up with, and that when we're in environments and relationships that align with those, it charges up. Like we get this external and internal force that creates a sense of satisfaction and energy and fulfillment, which drives what I call 4 things. It drives your energy, it drives your focus, it drives your level of commitment, and it drives your effort that you put in. And then by all measures, I think that sounds like motivation to me, right? Practical, tangible motivation.
Yeah, in the book, you mentioned 3 states that often hold us back.
Oh
Can you
yeah.
walk us through these and explain how they act as invisible barriers to our potential?
Yeah, Tim, you ask great questions, by the way. I just want you to know that. Yeah, I call them the 3 great states. Most people have heard of psychological safety. Unfortunately, even though I love the great work of Amy Edmondson and other authors, psychological safety has become this buzzword, and basically it's become very limited. And I think the 3 great states are what I refer to as safe, significant, and situated.
Yep.
And these are the states that are conditions that are created within our relationships with each other and within our environment. And so it goes beyond psychological safety. Like safe is the first thing. When we're in environments and relationships where we feel physically safe, emotionally, mentally, socially, and even spiritually, that level of comfort and trust, right? And I talk in the book about very specific behaviors that lead to that. The second one is significant. This is about feeling like you matter, not just as an employee or a team member, but as a human being, that you have value, you have worth, and your contributions matter as well. So that's significant. So we get safe, significant, and bringing up the rear in this triumvirate is situated, which is I know where I'm going. I'm clear on my direction. I'm clear on my purpose. I understand the expectations, the roles and responsibilities. So the word I like to attach to situated is predictable. That my world is predictable to the extent possible. And one of the things we see in my work and also in the book is that when we feel the 3 great states, one or more of them in a relationship, we show up. We bring our full selves. We don't hold back. But it's when one of those has been compromised, even just a little bit, we start to hide, hold back, slow down, and push down. And from the outside, if you don't know that, your performance or your functioning has been compromised. And now we're sliding into an area of vulnerability, because now whatever happens next determines whether the 3 great states are set or compromised. Right. Yeah. So
Right.
those are the 3 great states. And it's probably the 3 most important dimensions. I mean, they're all important, but if you don't have the 3 great states, you've got nothing, right?
Mm.
People are holding back. They're not giving and we're great fakers, Tim, right? Like employees
Yeah.
are great. When someone says, "Hey, is everything okay?"
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yes.
fine.
Brilliant.
It's
Yeah.
fine. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Like, may I have another? Like, just leave
Yeah.
me alone. Or I'm running the clock, right? Like, what time is this meeting over?
Mm.
And so we in subtle ways, and that's why we teach leaders in our programs at Brivia, but also in the book, it's like, here are the signs. Here are the practical things you can do to create the 3 great states. Here's the advantages of them. And I mean, Tim, I went to town on this one. Like I wanted the first chapter to be like worth the price of admission
Mm.
of this book, right? And it gives over 40 specific behaviors. And then the first appendix is here. If you don't go any further, here's a way that you can create the 3 great states, whether it's at home, with your children and your family, in your office, or in the boardroom. So very, very important, those 3 great states for sure.
So you've worked with elite performers from surgeons to fighter pilots. What is the one common behavioral trait that separates the elite from the merely just good?
Well, they have what they call imposter syndrome. You want to crack this nut? I've never in my life heard a gang member or a youth in residential group care or a foster child say, I have imposter syndrome, because they're the imposters, right? Like, and I mean that with the most love. It's like, but we've got like high performers put so much pressure on themselves that there's a high level of doubt, self doubt, right, and
Mm,
criticism, and
yeah,
it's very layered. But one of the things I want people to know is that we all have that level of self doubt. We all have that sense. Like, I don't think there's a human in the world that hasn't asked the worst question at the wrong time, which is, what's wrong with me?
yeah,
Right? But high performers have a higher dose of that because they are almost outrunning their insecurities. They're almost outperforming that level of self-doubt. And when it catches up, right? And it can take you out at the knee. So that's one of the biggest things is I found that very, very high performers have high levels of self-doubt. Not consistently, but when they do come into play, they can be quite profound. Yeah.
um, you have a very inclusive definition of leadership, that
Yeah.
it isn't about a title. How can a parent or a junior employee use your model to lead from exactly where they are right now?
Oh yeah, that's a great. I think I wrote an academic book on leadership, and I tried not to put in a definition because we didn't. I'm like, do we really need another one? They said, well, we're not going to publish it unless you give a definition. So this time I went for it. Like, let's open it up. And leadership is, for me, is leadership is a practice. It's not a title. It's everybody who wakes up in the morning committed and dedicated to improving the lives of other people, to support, to develop, and grow their success. So this is anybody who's invested in another human. And I think by opening it up like that, it does allow everybody to start with where they're at. I don't think I know another human working on a team that doesn't want the best for other humans, including themselves, right? So any effort made towards nurturing, supporting, and developing puts you into a leadership, because leadership is a practice, as I talk about. So you don't need a formal title. You just need to get to work on the things that you're already doing to support the success of the people around you. Yeah.
You identify four specific dimensions that drive energy and effort. If a
Yeah.
leader notices their team is burning out, which one of these dimensions is usually the first to break down?
Yeah, it's often, I would say, significant is probably the first dimension. And I think, I'm thinking a lot about this burnout thing. I've been working in child welfare for a long time. So I'm wondering if are we burnt or burnt out, right? Because being burnt is like, I give it my all and no one sees me, right? I show up and I do what I'm asked and I'm not thanked or recognized, right? And I think, or so I think that's a really big piece of that is if people are not feeling significant, um they start to slow down and shut down, right? And if it's not the significant people in this age of disruption, it's having a lack of being situated, not being clear on what's expected of us. And it's the thing about the three great states is when one or more are compromised, it starts to affect our safety,
Hmm.
right? So as I look around the world right now, I really wonder, I don't wonder, I know that I call them the working wounded. And people are showing up every single day across every sector. They show up to succeed. They want to do their best. And I think if they're not, we don't ask what's wrong with them. We ask what's wrong with the environment or what's wrong with the relationships that they're in, and we
Yeah,
start there. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and looking at that in more detail, so why don't you explain the four dimensions, and so people understand what that is.
Yeah, so the four major dimensions that are in the algorithm are what I call the core four:
Mm,
our needs, values, goals, and strengths. And one of the biggest discoveries, you asked me about, high performers, is many high performers don't know their core four. Like, they haven't stopped to think about the meaning. I call it the meaning in their motivators. So the core four are like forces of meaning and motivation. So when we're experiencing them, so when my needs are being met to some degree, when my values are being fully aligned in the environment, when my goals are being accomplished or I see them getting knocked down and my strengths are being identified and leveraged, man, that's like, and we're not even talking about, like, this isn't like, I work with people through the pandemic. I work in child death reviews and child welfare, and in the military, some pretty hard times, and surgery, of course. Like, they're dealing with end of life quite often, right? And complicated cases. That's not what bothers them. right? I think when they're in moments where they're experiencing meaning. So I talk about three things, not so much in the book, but around the book, is matter, meaning, and manageability.
Mm.
Most people can't manage their work right now because they don't feel like they matter.
Yeah.
Most people can't manage their work right now because it has little to no meaning, right? So when we focus on the three great states and we plug people into their core four and we find out what it is that motivates them, we see very different people showing up. We see them
Mm.
showing up early, staying late. And one of the things I learned about the pandemic and also other major modes of serious disruption, it's not the disruption. It's how we move through the disruption that makes a difference,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So communication is a pillar of your work. How does the getting to better model change the way we should give and receive feedback in a high pressure environment?
Yeah, people talk a lot about communication. I talk about communication, regulation, and navigation, right? And communication doesn't have to be complicated. And one of the things that I do in the very final chapter, second last chapter, is introduce core communication.
Mm.
And core communication is a simple but very powerful way of tuning into the core four of the other person by validating, affirming, a little bit of paraphrasing and active listening,
Yep.
but really give some of my favorite responses. And there's some case studies in the beginning, of course, that get people warmed up, that by the time they get to core communication, it makes a lot of sense,
Mm.
and gives them the tools to create active listening, which is one of the most high potency behaviors possible. And it opens up the person's core four so that we can learn exactly what is this, what is driving this in this moment, what do they need, what do they value, what do they hope for, and let them demonstrate what they're really good at.
Mm. We live in an era of quiet quitting and high stress. How does understanding your own behavioral algorithm help us build a psychological armor against burnout?
Yeah, well, I go into the resilience piece, right? Individual and collective resilience. I think this quiet quitting thing, I mean, younger people are waking up to like, you mean I'm supposed to work 85 hours a week so that one person can get rich? It's like the
Yeah.
things that held together for some of the older
So I can get,
generations.
so the CEO can buy
Yeah.
another Porsche, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they're
Yeah.
like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But I think when it comes to resilience, one of the most powerful forces of resilience is understanding your own core four. First of all, having relationships where you feel the three great states, where you're able to relate, regulate, and resource. I talk about that in the book. But the biggest thing, Tim, is when you understand your core four, when you go into situations and you're going into a meeting or you're going into an environment and you know that you need something or you value something or you want something, you can actually predict how that situation's going to go, right? If you're a creative and you're going into an environment where you need creativity and interaction, and you value collaboration. If you're going into an environment where those aren't there, you can actually prepare yourself. You can predict how you're going to feel. You can promote your own well-being by saying, hey, I know that meeting's going to suck, so afterwards I'm going to see Tim. We're going to set up a coffee. We're going to have a Zoom call.
We're going to
So
go
you
and
can
have an ice cream.
absolutely, yeah, you have ice cream from the book, right? It's not about the ice cream. And I think this is what's so powerful in the book. And it comes out in the second chapter, is that some of the things that we think motivate us are not the reason why they're motivating us. And one of the things I try to pull the curtain back from is that our resilience and our ability to tune into our core four is not as hard as we think. We just need to shift our thinking around it. And we've been misled on what we think motivation is and what we truly believe resilience is. Right. So yeah, I think when you understand your core four and you understand what you need in terms of relationships and environments, it becomes a game changer. You're able to predict what's coming next, promote your own well-being, and prevent difficulties from happening as well. Yeah.
That's what I saw from the book, for definite. Yeah. So final question: if a listener feels completely stuck today, whether in their career or personal life, what is the first core adjustment they can make in the next 24 hours to start them moving towards better?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. The first thing is, don't ask what's wrong, ask what's going on, right?
Right.
And I think people, if we asked what's right with me versus what's wrong with me more often, we'd actually find out the things that are happening that make those experiences great. And I think we've done ourselves a disservice by only tuning into our motivation when it's down, or tuning into our resilience when we feel we don't have any. So the number one step is to reach out. I always say reach out, like those the key connectors. reach out to relationships who are supportive, right? Know who those people are, reach out to them. And then also focus on the times that you were doing this before and you were doing better. Like, what are the small first steps that you need? It doesn't have to be a solution, but that's why I get to better. What's one thing you need right better? Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Stephen,
Yeah.
Stephen, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book,
All
Getting
right.
to Better, a new model for evaluating human potential at work and life. If I wanted to buy a copy, where can I get one from?
You can find that anywhere. Gettingtobetter.com will give you options. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Indigo chapters. So yeah, it's available almost everywhere. Yeah.
And if I wanted to get hold of you, where can I find you?
You can find me at gettingtobetter.com, or briviaconsulting.com is our company, our little company that helps organizations, operationalize this stuff on a larger scale. Yeah.
Excellent. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. As I say, I think it's an excellent book. It's detailed but simple at the same time.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It took a long time and a long effort to write, so I'm glad you liked it, Tim.
Yeah.
And thank you for helping me spread the word, because I honestly
You're
believe
welcome.
this will help us all get to better individually and